Everyone, and welcome to this week's session of Tambarara. As usual, I'm joined by Happy. Happy, how are you today?
Good, thanks, Tinasha. How are you?
Great. And also, unfortunately, if you noticed, we're missing Cornelius, but he will be back with us at our next session. We're just going to jump straight into our headlines for this week. And first thing of notable news is gold deliveries. October gold delivery news came out. We had 3.5 tons produced this month, which is slightly down, about 3.8% down. Happy, what do you think about this news?
Okay, so the Reserve Bank and the Mines Ministry have done certain things right in terms of the small-scale mining sector. They've incentivized, they've got 3 to 5% incentives that they're paying on increased gold deliveries from the small-scale mining sector, and they're paying 100% in foreign currency, spot price, you get paid there and then. So which is good for small-scale miners that would at least curb smuggling of minerals, of gold. And I think it's good because they're getting up to 2 tons a month, which is a good average by any standard. But unfortunately, we won't make the 29 tons target because it was a little bit too late. They only did these changes in May, June. And by that time, I think gold deliveries were at their record lows. What they're not getting right is the primary producers. I think you can see with Riozim that's struggling at the moment. Blanket is doing well, but all the other mines are actually struggling. Eureka has just come on board, and small primary producers' deliveries were slightly lower, or they were just flat. They didn't change. And we know that there's an unfavorable scheme there, that retention policy 60-40, 80% if you increase production, 100% if you miss on the VFEX. So there's still a lot more to do within that sector for primary producers. They need a lot of capital. They need their payment structure to be fixed. I know that they're going to announce gold funds, a gold fund, possibly at budget. But they will avail gold loans to the primary producers. But I'm not so sure if that's enough. Primary producers, because of their scale, would require a lot of money. Like we said, it's not like $5 million that we saved last week, but they would require much more. So there's still a lot of organization that needs to be done. The 2023 target, 12 billion mining industry, that's not going to happen. Until we organize ourselves, there's still a lot of amendments to be done. The Gold Trade Act has to be amended. The Mines and Minerals Act has to be amended. And to organize the small-scale sector itself, they need to register small sectors and to be able to identify them so that at least they're policing and at least they can control what's being produced, and they know that deliveries will be formal. What has helped is that at least borders have been closed, so that has helped curb the smuggling a bit, at least because you know that smuggling mostly happens by road and not really through the airports. There's less gold going through the airport, but it's mostly by road. You take your backpack and then you just cross the border to South Africa in a bus and you won't get checked. So I think that has helped a bit. Once the borders are open, then it's back again to low deliveries. 3 tons a month is actually good, but not enough.
Yeah, you picked on a good number of points there. Just to add some numbers to what you're saying, for us to actually reach this 29 tons, actually a very ambitious target, we would need to average about 3.5 tons per month until the end of the year. And then again, looking at next year's target of 35 tons, I mean, again, really ambitious targets, but I mean,
very ambitious, and we're not gonna just do 3.5. I think once it starts to rain, then there's going to be less deliveries. I know they've got plans in place to at least say, let's get the pumps out to the small-scale miners, let's push more alluvial gold, which is lower anyway, because the law says no to alluvial gold. But I think 3.5 tons between now and December.
I mean, again, just small-scale farmers, because right now for this last month, small-scale farmers actually produced 67%, where it was about 2.05 tons compared to half a ton last year. I mean, we're actually putting a lot of burden on small-scale farmers, small-scale miners, and hopefully maybe it is possible. But yeah, again, just speaking of gold in general, and you mentioned the whole VFX listings, where companies like Caledonia and Eureka ramp up their sort of production this month, and Caledonia looking to less deposit receipts on the VFX. How do you think that's going to affect the market?
Well, it's a good thing. At least for the VFX, 3 counters, that will be the 3rd listing, so that's good for Justin and crowd. I think the whole complaint in the market was you're just creating a white elephant which doesn't have activity. The Caledonia is appetite for that 5 million. Not so sure. Liquidity is going to be tight still. But I think for people, I think it's an opportunity to be an investor on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point. The fact that it will be the only one that's actually listed and it's going to be deposit receipts, not so much direct equity.
Yeah.
Then that does actually open up and give some viability to the VFX going forward. And
It
hopefully
does.
we'll see a lot more companies maybe list there and take advantage of the benefits the VFX gives.
Well, I don't think people know the benefits yet. It's just the US dollar exchange, but a lot of people don't know yet. But it's still early days. I think for exchanges, they take time, 3 years at least to get some traction. And there are also fears of cannibalization, which would take you through to what we're going to discuss next, which is Bindura moving to VFX. That's, I think for me, Bindura to move, I think that's more exciting. I think that's going to bring a lot of liquidity to VFX because of who controls the majority shareholding group. I think, they're going to do something. Don't ask me how, but I just think, we've seen Kuvimba or... Yes, they've got plans, and it's still a company that's being built up. So, and they're still looking for equity partners. If they go to VFX, who knows? They'll bring in a 10% equity partner, and then that's no 10% in US dollars. That's like good liquidity at one go. I think it's exciting that Bindura would go to VFX.
Yeah, I think it's exciting as well, especially you mentioned like Kuvimba as well. But I feel like in terms of just their long-term perspective and what Kuvimba aims to do, especially a couple of months ago, when Kuvimba said they want to reimburse farmers and obviously they're going to use revenues from companies they do sort of hold. Do you think that sort of it disincentivizes people to get as excited about Bindura listing on VFX as it should?
Well, nobody understands the Kuvimba mining structure. Nobody understands how they arrived at it. I know there have been a lot of papers that are out, bitter ex-employees or ex-shareholders just trying to at least reveal what was going on. It's a complicated structure. I think anyone who buys into Bindura now is doing it speculatively, not really because they trust the shareholders. They're not to be trusted because we really don't know what they want to do. They can wake up tomorrow and then say, no, it's now owned by another government-created entity, or we're now moving it to MMCZ. It's just an unpredictable structure at the moment. And we don't know who's in it. What if that person just decides to sell out of it? I don't think it's stable, yes. I think it was well thought out that you at least pick up the government assets through ZMDC and then pick out Kuvimba, Bindura, which is under Asa Resources, and the Chinese didn't want it anymore. And it's a complicated structure. It's not really stable.
Yeah, but I guess I feel like in terms of the way markets work and how these things go, uncertainty, instability, that's that's where money can be made, though, realistically.
Yeah, not in Zim.
I feel like uncertainty does breed opportunity.
Not in Zim, but I think it's exciting for me. I think the Bindura one is more exciting than Caledonia. There's going to be more trades in Bindura on VFX than trades on the ZSE. I know it's active on the ZSE now, but it's going to be exciting once it's on the VFX.
Yeah, that's true. I think VFX really just needs liquidity injection. The fact that it doesn't trade as much. Like most days, there's no movement, and I feel like this whole Bindura and Caledonia could actually pop it up and again see it become a more viable exchange going forward in the future.
Yeah, but then there's fears of cannibalization with the ZSE. So if you earn a little bit of US dollars, you can just switch and go to VFX. And then nobody really gives a damn about what you're doing. Once you're on VFX, the markets, most people will stop caring about you because you're not on the main board anymore. So there's that fear of cannibalization. I don't know what they're going to do. There are a couple of stocks that we know are considering that move to VFX. That's going to hit ZSE hard. If ZSE is not growing in its current form, I think it will probably grow through new products. But that's a hard sell even. There's not going to be a lot of traction if the companies just decide, oh, we're switching and we're going to VFX.
That's true. But again, speaking of the main board, there's news of Old Mutual and PPC maybe having their suspensions lifted. This is obviously after Finance Deputy Minister Clement sort of came out and said this. And from what I see from it seems like a skeptical. I'm kind of skeptical about it, but I mean, once they did sort of bring it up and mention it, I do think it's a possibility of us seeing Old Mutual and PPC back trading on the exchange soon.
Why were they suspended in the first place? So this is government that's coming out to say, no, this is another option that we're just bringing onto the table after failing to convince the companies that they need to list on VFX. So now they're saying they can go back to the ZSE. But if they go back to the ZSE, I don't think they would have solved the problem, wouldn't they? They'll still be in an implied rate.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, yes. But I mean, again, as a company, from your own perspective, would you rather just remain suspended, or you get this cleared out and then move on with whatever company or corporate issues you might face?
I'll do exactly what they're doing. Just make your stance. You're not moving to VFX, and that's it. Government has got to solve this problem. They're the ones who suspended them in the first place, so they need to solve the problem. But then when they announce that we want to bring them back to ZSE, they haven't solved the problem. Then that means they are a foolish government by any but,
they're trying. I know, like, some with the government has always a bunch of quick fixes and that sort of thing. But I mean,
how will they try? It's like turning back to say, no, wait, okay, let them return. Because now you fail to solve the problem as government. They keep raising these issues. We've seen George Charamba on Twitter. We've seen Chris Mutsvango on Twitter attacking the ETF. So that's not going to stop. And don't think it's going to stop just because Old Mutual and PPC are back on the ZSE, which is a silly statement to be made by the Deputy Minister anyway. But what would they have solved, and what was the whole point?
I mean, also the idea of this whole suspension came really from a deep-rooted place of misunderstanding. Like, again, you mentioned the whole attacking the ETF, which really has no effect in terms of how things have been going in terms of exchange rates and that kind of thing. It's just just finding someone to blame, finding someone to say, okay, this is the problem, even though there's really nothing to fix it.
So then that would be a dog with a tail between its legs, and they say come back to, if you're government, you're not supposed to do that, and it's not a decision that they should really make. I think I would respect PPC and Old Mutual and their stance on this. I think they've really shown that, okay, you can't do to companies what you want. You just can't wake up to say you're suspended and you're moving over to VFX. They're trying to show governments how markets work and how businesses should be run. And government, I think, is just now at all sorts, really. How can you suggest that we'll bring them back? Then we'll just, the old mutual applied rate will still come back again because, just convert. Even though it's not fungible, but the rate will still be there. A silly statement. I don't know why he made it. Anyway.
I do understand your point. I do respect Old Mutual and PPC again for holding their stance. And then just final story. I guess we'll just dive a little bit into politics. I'm sure you guys have seen, Chamisa moving around the country, having these rallies, and obviously coming into being disrupted by a lot of ZANU-PF supporters and out there trying to aim to just derail his sort of rallies and his campaign. What do you think ZANU-PF is afraid of?
Of losing.
Do you really think they actually consider the fact that they might be in a position to lose the coming elections?
Yes. I think yes. There's a lot of panic now. I think when they thought that they've buried Chamisa, he's actually had a revival, sort of. And there's that whole generational consensus that people are talking about, where you feel maybe this is the right time. But this is such a funny story because at first it was like Chamisa, you're stage managing the blockages and these are your people. But now I think more and more it has come out that ZANU-PF is indeed behind us. They're trying to block Chamisa into entering those provinces. I mean, that's exactly what's wrong with this country because now that would make those cries for reforms even louder. That there's no freed up democratic space, and ZANU-PF would win anyway.
Right.
There's there's certain strongholds that that Mas Central is pretty much ZANU-PF. There's no reason for you to block Chamisa from going there or even to Mashingo. So you're just giving him clout.
Yeah, but I mean that's a very bold sort of approach from Chamisa. They're literally attacking Charlotte Central, like you said, it's always been a ZANU-PF stronghold.
Yeah.
I mean, he is coming at them, but I mean, still, like you mentioned, ZANU-PF should have nothing to be worried about. So, I don't know, maybe there's something that we don't quite initially know from the outside that, they're actually really worried and,
I know they are worried. I mean, anyone would be worried when you face an election and you've been in power for 40 years and you think that, people are kind of tired, they want change. But they will win. I mean, ZANU-PF will win. Am I being biased? No, I'm not. But that's actually the truth. They will win the elections, but there's no need for them to be doing all these theatrics just to manage Chamisa out. I mean, just let him be, let him campaign, and it's good for democracy. Then you can always go to America to say, look,
free and fair elections.
Yeah. But when it's like this, you really can't tell anyone to say, okay, democracy, we've done reforms when you really haven't. Allow him to advertise in the state media, give him space, and there's all those little things. But
Yeah, and I guess you've been a really good point in terms of the democratic outlook and just getting that image of democracy really thriving in the country, and this doesn't help much in that sort of regards. But I think that's probably it from us in terms of headlines for this week, unless you have anything to add on.
No.
So again, thank you guys for joining us. Catch us again next week. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.